time about trying to not only demystify the process, but demystify the process under which the governor nominates candidates to the bench, and then how those candidates move through the confirmation process in the General Assembly. I think it was in 2010 the legislature required that the Judicial Selection Commission start the process of getting some demographic information together relating to the individuals who are on the Judicial Selection Commission approved list, and that process is underway. I know the staff of Judicial Selection is doing that. Without having the benefit of those definitive numbers, I did take an opportunity to review the list in anticipation of today's meeting to give you some sense of it. Now, I should qualify this by saying that not all candidates are required to provide information about their background, whether it's religious, ethnic, heritage, or anything like that. Although I do think we require them to actually tell us their gender on the applications. And in analyzing that information, understanding that it's imperfect information, I can report to you in broad terms what the information is, and it frankly is a confirmation of the concerns that we have talked about in this group, that I know the General Assembly has talked about, but I think the concern applies not only to members of the minority community, but also, as the Chief Justice was noting, potentially with respect to women as well. In the approved list of candidates to be Superior Court judges, there are less than 5% are members of self-identified as members of minority groups, and just slightly more than 20% are females. So if you compare those numbers that are on the approved list to the numbers that the Chief Justice just articulated to the members who currently serve on the bench, I think we've actually done a fairly good job in having a relatively large number of members of the minority community on the bench, given the relatively small number that are on the list. So this goes back to the question that I posed at our last meeting: is how do we grow that list? And it's not just encouraging, although I think it's very important to encourage people to apply to judicial selection. I continue to believe that the problem starts much earlier, and I don't think it's within our scope to deal with it, but it is something that impacts our work, and that is that we don't have enough members of minority groups even entering into law school, much less into the practice of law, much less getting them encouraged to apply to judicial selection. So in my view, it's the whole panoply of issues of underrepresentation of minorities within the legal system that constrains this portion of that system.
I guess my question is the talk about constraint. I recognize that all of the things that you have lined up for us are true, but what I'm not understanding is, if we're intentional about diversifying the bench, how are we constrained when we still have people from those groups on the list? I'm not understanding, because it is my understanding that the people who make it on the list are qualified. And so I'm not understanding what constrains us from doing an even better job if we have qualified people who are sitting on the list and we happen to know so.
Well, my comments were geared toward the fact that if you look at the totality of the number of individuals who are on the list, there's a underrepresentation of members of minority groups on the list itself. I think your question goes to the second part of that process of if there are individuals on the list then what's the constraint to getting them nominated to be on the bench, if I understood the question correctly? And if that's the question, I can tell you right now the constraint is money. There are actually, and I suspect Judge Quinn can give some more specifics, but I believe that there are approximately 20 vacant judicial positions on the Superior Court right now, and the money associated with those positions to fund them was eliminated in the budget. So the constraint right now is not a lack of desire to nominate individuals, it's a lack of resources to fund those positions.